He thought it was just lunch. It turned out to be a corporate ambush. It was a warm Tuesday in early March, the kind of spring day where Austin skies are cloudless and deceptively calm. Derek Harper, 42, CTO of TaylorTech Industries, received a meeting invite that morning, not for a boardroom battle, but for lunch. Just him and Preston Blake, the CEO. The location? Brixton's Grill, an upscale steakhouse downtown, more a spot for deal-making than casual dining. The kind of place where million-dollar contracts are signed with bourbon instead of ballpoint pens. Derek didn't think much of it. He had led the company's tech division through over a decade of chaos and growth, building TaylorTech's infrastructure from rubble into a streamlined machine. He assumed Preston wanted to discuss the new server integration, or maybe congratulate him on a recent systems overhaul. But the moment Preston walked in, suit pressed, eyes distant, voice a little too rehearsed, Derek's gut tightened. Something was off. They ordered lunch. Preston barely touched his steak. And then, between sips of water and awkward small talk, the CEO dropped the bombshell with surgical coldness. "Derek, the board has decided to go in a new direction. Nathan's going to be stepping in as CTO starting next month." Derek blinked. "Nathan? Nathan Blake, Preston's 24-year-old nephew, fresh out of MIT with a shiny resume and zero real-world experience?" The air left the room. Preston kept talking. Buzzwords like fresh energy, transition phase, and next-generation thinking. But Derek wasn't listening. He was staring into his untouched plate, realizing this wasn't lunch, it was his execution meal. You don't erase a man's legacy overnight, especially when he built the kingdom brick by brick. Derek sat in his car after that brutal lunch, engine idling, hands still gripping the steering wheel. The same hands that, 11 years ago, had held the first blueprint for what would become TaylorTech's digital backbone. Back in 2014, TaylorTech had been nothing more than a regional manufacturer with aging systems and a devastating ransomware attack that nearly drove it into bankruptcy. The company was paralyzed, files locked, operations frozen, phones silent. And it was Derek, then just a systems engineer brought in as a contractor, who answered the midnight call. He didn't sleep for 72 hours straight. Derek coordinated emergency backups, negotiated with security firms, and wrote lines of code from scratch to patch vulnerabilities the previous IT team didn't even know existed. When the smoke cleared, TaylorTech survived. And Preston? He called Derek a hero in the company-wide memo. By the end of that quarter, Derek was officially hired as CTO. But he didn't stop there. With barely any budget and a skeleton crew of 5 help desk workers, Derek slowly built a real department. He hired smart, loyal people. He designed an internal architecture that could scale. He trained his team to run the infrastructure across 3 manufacturing plants, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. By 2020, TaylorTech was a regional powerhouse, and the tech behind it was airtight, lean, and battle-tested. And now? That empire was being handed off to a kid with no scars, no history, no understanding of what it cost to build. Preston and the board had forgotten all of it. 11 years of 3 a.m. server restarts, crisis mode deployments, and personal sacrifices, all wiped clean with a steakhouse announcement. But Derek hadn't forgotten, and he sure as hell wasn't done yet. When the lights start to dim, you don't always notice, until you're standing in the dark alone. It started small, too small to raise alarms at first. Last September, Derek noticed his calendar had been quietly edited. A quarterly strategy meeting he'd attended for years was gone. Rescheduled, the invite said, but no new date followed. A week later, his access to the server security roadmap vanished. Permission error, the system told him. Odd, since he built the damn system. He shrugged it off. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe IT had accidentally reset roles during an update. Then came the audit. 2 people from internal compliance, faces he barely recognized, asked for a full log of Derek's activities for the past 3 months. No warning, no context, just a spreadsheet demand and a 72-hour deadline. Derek played ball, but unease crept in. Why now? Why him? And slowly it escalated. One by one, key files went missing from his drive. His comments disappeared from shared documents. Projects he'd championed for months were suddenly reassigned without explanation. He asked Preston once, casually, in the hallway, "Everything good on your end?" The CEO gave a tight smile. "Of course. just reorganizing a bit. But Derek knew the scent of a setup. He'd seen it happen before, just never to him. By November, the meetings he used to lead were being held without him. He only found out because Luis, one of his senior engineers, texted him during one. "Are you joining this security compliance review? Thought you were leading it?" He wasn't even invited. The walls were closing in, and Derek could feel it. A plan was in motion. He just didn't know yet how deep it ran or who else was in on it. Security breaches don't always start outside the firewall. Sometimes the real danger sits one floor above you, in a tailored suit, sipping black coffee. It was 2:17 a.m. on a Thursday when Derek's phone buzzed. An alert. Unauthorized access flagged from a restricted admin portal, level 5 clearance only. The IP address? Logged from the 14th floor. That wasn't possible. The 14th floor housed only one group, Executive Operations. No one there had system-level credentials. No one, except him. Heart racing, Derek sat up in bed and grabbed his laptop. He pulled the logs. At first glance, the access looked like a mistake, just a ping to a test environment. But digging deeper, he saw patterns. Repeat attempts. Each intrusion was subtle, staggered, like someone was testing the waters, like someone inside the company was trying to reverse engineer his architecture. The target? A file directory labeled Deep Safe. It wasn't just code, it was his blueprint, an adaptive security framework he'd been building off the record for 2 years. No one was supposed to know it even existed. And yet someone did. By 3 a.m., Derek had a name, or rather, a login ID NBLV14. He didn't need a corporate directory to guess who NB was. Nathan Blake, the golden boy, the MIT grad, the CEO's nephew. But how the hell had Nathan gotten access? Derek's fingers trembled as he typed out a query into the admin console. The access token had been granted manually, 3 weeks ago. By none other than Preston Blake. His stomach turned. It was official. The betrayal wasn't accidental. It was coordinated. They weren't just pushing him out. They were stripping him clean before the fall. Derek closed the laptop and stared out the window at the sleeping skyline of Austin. His mind was racing now, but not with fear. With calculation. If they wanted war, they just started it. What's worse than being replaced? Meeting the smug little bastard who already thinks your life's work belongs to him. Derek didn't plan the confrontation. But when he saw Nathan standing alone in the server room, jacket off, sleeves rolled, pretending to look busy, it was too good to pass up. The nerve. Most new hires weren't even allowed in this part of the building without clearance, let alone given unsupervised access to the heart of the company's IT infrastructure. Yet here he was. Nathan Blake, fresh out of MIT, with his ridiculous gelled hair and smug half-smile, poking around like he owned the place. "You lost, kid?" Derek asked, his tone casual but cold. Nathan turned slowly. No surprise, no apology, just that same irritating smirk. "Oh, hey, you must be Derek. I've heard a lot about you." Derek didn't smile. "Funny, I haven't heard a damn thing about you until 3 weeks ago." Nathan leaned against the server rack, arms crossed like he was lecturing a student. "Well, that's about to change. Preston thinks the department needs modernization, efficiency, scalable architecture, stuff we actually learn at MIT. Derek bit down hard, jaw tightening. "You've been in this company 5 minutes and already think you know what we need?" Nathan shrugged. "Let's just say your legacy is outdated. No offense." "No offense?" Derek took a step closer. "Let me tell you something, hotshot. When ransomware wiped this company off the grid in 2014, it wasn't some Ivy League brat who rebuilt it. It was me. I turned a 5-man help desk into a 30-person round-the-clock ops team. I kept this place alive when everyone else ran scared." Nathan raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "And now it's time for the next chapter." Derek stared at him, letting the silence hang just long enough. Then he nodded. "Yeah, maybe it is," and walked out. But in his head, a clock had just started ticking. They underestimated the quiet man, but Derek Harper wasn't going down without a legacy and a fight. The cafe on the east side of Austin was small, tucked between an old record store and a vape shop, a place no executive would ever be caught dead. That's why Derek chose it. Luis Martinez was already there, sipping from a chipped ceramic mug and pretending to scroll through his phone. He looked up and nodded when Derek slid into the seat across from him. "No eyes?" Derek asked quietly. Luis shook his head. I've been paranoid since they changed the admin credentials last week. Something's going down. Derek leaned in. It already did. I'm out, Luis. Preston's replacing me with his nephew. Luis blinked, then cursed under his breath. But it's not just that, Derek continued. They've been poking into the systems, unauthorized logins from executive-level devices. Someone's trying to mirror the architecture. My architecture. Luis frowned. You think they're building a shadow copy? I know they are. Then came the silence, the kind where unspoken truths echo loudest. I need your help, Derek said. Not sabotage, just leverage. You remember how we built most of the network in the early days? Half of it wasn't in the official documentation. Luis smiled for the first time. You mean your off-books genius? Of course. I helped wire half of it. Derek nodded. Good, because if they want the whole package, they're going to have to acknowledge who built it. I'm not handing over years of blood, sweat and code for a handshake and a pat on the back. Luis leaned forward. You're planning something. Derek's eyes didn't flinch. I'm preparing options. The room fell silent, but betrayal has a way of echoing louder than any applause. The company-wide meeting was called for 10 a.m. sharp. Everyone at TaylorTech Industries had received the email the night before. Important organizational update. No agenda, no explanation. In the sleek, glass-walled conference hall on the 14th floor, over 100 employees filed in, whispering, speculating. Something big was about to drop. Derek Harper sat near the front, composed but hollow-eyed. He already knew what was coming. What he didn't know was how Preston would spin it. Preston Blake, CEO and walking PR machine, strode in 5 minutes late, as usual, with his signature fake warmth and carefully casual smile. He didn't waste time. Good morning, everyone, Preston began, tapping the mic. Thank you for joining us. Today marks a new chapter at TaylorTech. A murmur rippled through the room. It's bittersweet, Preston continued, but our longtime CTO, Derek Harper, will be transitioning out of his role as of next month. Silence. No applause. Just stunned faces. Preston cleared his throat, then added, In his place, we're welcoming fresh talent from MIT, someone with a cutting-edge perspective and deep understanding of next-gen systems. Please welcome Nathan Blake, who'll be stepping into the role of Chief Technology Officer. Nathan, standing smugly at the side, gave a tight-lipped nod. Not a smile. Not a word. The room shifted uncomfortably. Some clapped, most didn't. Vanessa Collins, Derek's executive assistant for nearly 8 years, looked from Preston to Nathan, then at Derek. Something was off, deeply off. She leaned toward Derek. This is wrong. You built this company's backbone. They owe you more than this. Derek's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. The betrayal was complete, but so was his resolve. When you build something with your bare hands, you don't sell it for peanuts. Not unless you've given up. Derek hadn't. After the humiliating company announcement, Derek went quiet for a day. The next morning, he requested a private meeting with Preston and the company's legal counsel. The subject line in his email was short and sharp, System Sync, Intellectual Property Clarification. Inside the glass-walled executive suite, Derek sat across from Preston and a young, overly confident corporate lawyer named Meredith Quinn. She greeted him with a rehearsed smile and a folder marked confidential. Derek didn't waste time. I developed System Sync independently in 2012, he said, sliding across a dated USB drive. Before I joined TaylorTech, before I even heard of this company, you've been using it for 8 years and now you want to hand it to someone else like it's yours? Meredith didn't blink. Mr. Harper, any tools or systems you implemented during your time here are considered company property unless otherwise stated in a separate IP agreement. That's exactly it, Derek replied. This one is otherwise stated. He pulled out a printed email, dated 2014, signed by none other than Preston himself. It acknowledged Derek's prior ownership of System Sync and noted the company was simply adopting it temporarily until an internal system could be built. That internal system never happened. Preston's jaw tensed. Meredith flipped through the email with visible discomfort. She set the document down and calmly offered, TaylorTech is willing to compensate you, $5,000 in exchange for full rights to System Sync. Derek stared at her. $5,000? He leaned forward, lowering his voice. This platform runs your plants 24/7. It's the reason you even have a product to sell to TechCore. Preston finally spoke. Let's not make this personal, Derek. It is personal, Derek said, rising from his seat. I'm not handing it over. Not for $5,000. Not for any amount, unless we negotiate fair market value. Or see you in court. The silence was thunderous. Derek walked out without looking back. The battle lines were now officially drawn. When the wolves come in suits, they don't howl. They schedule performance reviews. Nathan didn't waste any time. The Monday after the company-wide announcement, every member of the IT department received a calendar invite. Subject line, individual performance review, mandatory. The sender, Nathan Blake. No HR rep, no supervisor, just him. Luis Martinez, Derek's longtime confidant and second-in-command, was the first to be called in. He walked into the conference room with a calm exterior, but a stomach full of dread. Nathan was seated at the head of the table, flanked by a clipboard and a steaming coffee from the CEO's private stash. He didn't offer Luis a seat, just nodded toward a chair. So, Luis, Nathan began, not bothering to hide his condescension, tell me what exactly you do here. Luis gave him a measured look. I maintain the back-end infrastructure, oversee deployment pipelines, and lead on-call rotations across all 3 plants. Nathan smirked. And how reliant are you on Derek Harper's undocumented systems? Luis raised an eyebrow. Define undocumented. Nathan leaned forward, voice low and oily. We both know some systems don't exist on paper. I need to know who's loyal to me now. Luis didn't answer. He didn't need to. The message was clear. Speak against Derek or get ready to pack. That day, 5 more engineers were evaluated. 2 walked out of their meetings visibly shaken. 1, Stephanie Lynn, the cybersecurity lead, was escorted out by security after refusing to hand over admin passwords until given a written transfer of authority. By the end of the week, whispers flooded the halls. It wasn't a review, it was a purge. Derek watched quietly. He knew this was coming. He'd warned Luis, but it still stung, watching his team, the people who'd pulled 48-hour shifts during the ransomware crisis, be picked off one by one. He called Vanessa late Friday. They're cleaning house. I know, she whispered. Nathan just asked me to list who Derek's loyalists are. What did you say? I told him I don't deal in rumors, and that loyalty isn't a liability. There was a pause. Derek, she said, they're scared of you. Derek smiled grimly. Good. Let's give them something real to fear. Sometimes the real betrayal isn't getting replaced. It's finding out your life's work was sold behind your back. It all started with an Excel sheet, one Vanessa wasn't supposed to see. Late one evening, she was cleaning out a shared folder when she stumbled upon a mislabeled file. Q4 Projections, Archive. Curiosity piqued, she opened it. Her eyes widened. The document detailed projected financials not for TaylorTech, but for TechCore Holdings. Revenue forecasts, asset valuations, and, buried in the third tab, a list of key proprietary technologies included in acquisition. Right there, in bold font, System Sync Protocol, Core Infrastructure Module. Created by Derek Harper. Vanessa didn't sleep that night. The next morning she rushed to Derek's apartment. You need to see this. He scanned the file slowly, his face unreadable until he reached the third tab. His hands clenched. So that's what this was all about, he muttered. Not just replacing me, they needed my code to close the deal. Vanessa nodded. And they're pitching it as TaylorTech's own asset. No mention of you. No licensing, no attribution. Derek stood up, pacing. They're selling the company based on technology they don't fully own. Exactly. That's why the timing matters. They need you out before the sale becomes public. A silence fell between them, heavy, charged. Derek finally spoke. They want a clean handover. They're not getting it. Sometimes the most powerful weapon is not revenge. It's proof that can't be erased. The basement was cold, silent, except for the hum of Derek's breath as he pulled down a dusty cardboard box from the top shelf. It had been years since he'd even thought about it. Labelled in Sharpie, Backup, Personal Projects 2013 to 2015. This was it, his last shot. Inside, wrapped in layers of bubble wrap and forgotten ambition, lay an old external hard drive. He plugged it into his laptop, heart pounding like a war drum. The screen blinked. Then a folder popped up, System Sync Original Build. Not just code, Diagrams, flowcharts, early mock-ups, everything from when Derek built the tool in his garage 2 years before TaylorTech even existed. But that wasn't all. Digging deeper, he found an email dated March 18, 2015. Subject line, use of your tool in internal systems. From Preston Blake. Appreciate you letting us use your sync tool during this ransomware cleanup. As we discussed, this remains your personal intellectual property. TaylorTech will not claim ownership. Derek exhaled slowly. There it was, the bulletproof proof. He copied the files onto a secure drive, then another. One would go in a safe deposit box. The other, he'd send it to his lawyer, just in case. When he met with Vanessa that night, her eyes widened. You found it? I did more than that. He said, I found a smoking gun. When your enemies try to corner you, the best move is to make them believe they're winning. It was supposed to be 6 weeks. That's what Derek had been promised. Enough time to organize documentation, wrap up loose ends, and quietly walk away with a shred of dignity. Instead, Preston called him into his office on a grey Tuesday morning, his tone unusually sharp. Change of plans, he said curtly. We're moving your transition deadline up. You have 2 weeks. Derek stared at him. 2 weeks? That's not even enough time to brief the new guy. Preston's smile was cold. Nathan's a fast learner. Besides, we expect full cooperation from you while you're still on payroll. It wasn't a request. It was a threat in disguise. Derek nodded slowly, but his eyes told a different story. That night, back in his apartment, he opened his laptop and typed a single sentence in his encrypted notes. Plan B in motion. He knew this was a pressure tactic. Squeeze him fast, break him faster. But they had no idea. Derek wasn't about to hand over the crown jewels, especially not to someone like Nathan. In the days that followed, HR sent him forms, checklists, handover protocols. Nathan smugly requested one-on-one training sessions. Derek ignored every request related to the System Sync core framework. When pressed, he simply replied, that tool was never company property. You don't have the right to it. Preston tried to bluff legal action, but Derek sent him a short reply, attaching the 2015 email where Preston himself had confirmed Derek's sole ownership of the software. The silence that followed was deafening. Vanessa met him later that week, her voice low. They're getting desperate. Derek smiled. Good, let them. He wasn't playing defense anymore. He was tightening the noose. Sometimes the best defense is a well-hidden offense, and Derek was about to launch his. The night was thick with tension when Derek met Luis in the dimly lit parking garage behind TaylorTech Industries. The cold air bit at Derek's skin, but nothing chilled him more than the stakes of this meeting. Luis slid a manila envelope across the grimy concrete. Inside were copies of the original source code for System Sync, the very backbone of the company's IT infrastructure. Alongside it, detailed deployment logs and encrypted access keys glowed softly on a thumb drive. Luis's voice was low but steady. They think we're all replaceable, Derek, but they're wrong. Not everyone's got the knowledge, the loyalty, and the guts to hold the line. Derek's fingers trembled as he took the package. 11 years of sweat, blood, and sleepless nights were all contained within those files. We're not just fighting to keep our jobs, Luis said. We're fighting to protect what's ours. This company, it's bigger than Preston and Nathan. It's bigger than TaylorTech. Derek's mind raced. The next steps had to be precise. Expose the truth, protect the technology, and outmaneuver the sharks circling above. They spent hours hashing out every detail, how to safeguard the code from unauthorized access, how to gather irrefutable proof of ownership, and most importantly, how to use the information as leverage. Luis tapped the side of the thumb drive, a silent symbol of their weaponized knowledge. If they think they can steamroll us, they're about to find out just how wrong they are. Derek nodded. His old fire was back. The calm, controlled tech leader was gone. In his place stood a man ready for war. As the shadows lengthened, the two allies parted ways, their mission clear. Protect the legacy, expose the betrayal, and reclaim what was rightfully Derek's. This was no longer a game of survival. It was a battle for justice. When a house of cards collapses, the fallout is sudden and devastating. It was supposed to be a routine day at TaylorTech Industries, but the moment Nathan Blake attempted to take full control of the IT system, everything spiraled out of control. Minutes after Nathan's login, alarms blared across the production floor. Machines whirred to a halt. Conveyor belts screeched to a standstill. The relentless hum of 24/7 manufacturing was replaced by an eerie silence. Within the first hour, the company was bleeding money. More than $40,000 lost as the production line ground to a halt. Nathan's confidence vanished with every failed attempt to restart the system. His face, usually cocky and smug, grew pale and tight. Meanwhile, Derek Harper, watching from the sidelines, felt a grim satisfaction. This was no accident. The fragile IT architecture Nathan inherited was riddled with holes. Precisely the vulnerabilities Derek had warned about. Employees whispered behind closed doors, casting suspicious glances at Nathan's leadership. Vanessa, Derek's loyal assistant, took careful notes, her mind racing through every implication. Derek knew this chaos was only the beginning. It was a signal flare, a warning shot fired across the bow. The fragile facade of TaylorTech's new regime was cracking. Luis reached out to Derek with a simple text. "It's happening. We hold the line." This crisis wasn't just a technical failure. It was a battle for control, trust, and the soul of a company on the brink of upheaval. Derek was ready, not just to watch the collapse, but to steer what came next. The game had changed, and the stakes had never been higher. When allies become targets, trust becomes the most dangerous weapon. Vanessa's voice trembled over the phone. "Nathan's asking questions. About me. He's hinting I might not have a future here." Derek's jaw tightened. Vanessa had been his rock, his eyes and ears inside the company. Losing her trust now could mean the end of everything he'd fought for. "Do you trust me, Vanessa?" Derek asked quietly. There was a pause on the other end. Then a barely audible "yes." That single word set everything in motion. Derek knew the stakes had never been higher. Nathan wasn't just dismantling his team, he was systematically isolating every ally. Vanessa's position was the next to fall under siege. They arranged a secret meeting, far from prying eyes. In a dimly lit cafe on the outskirts of Austin, Vanessa handed over critical documents and whispered about Nathan's plan to purge the loyalists and consolidate power. "This is bigger than I thought," Derek admitted, scanning the papers. Vanessa nodded. "If Nathan succeeds, TaylorTech won't just lose its soul. We all lose." Derek's mind raced. The time for subtlety was over. The final phase of his plan was about to begin, and Vanessa's loyalty would be the key. "I need you to be ready," he said, "because things are going to get a lot worse before they get better." Outside, the city buzzed with oblivious normalcy. Inside that small cafe, a quiet revolution was taking shape, one that could decide the fate of everyone involved. Trust was fragile, but in this game of shadows, it was the only weapon Derek had left. The room fell silent. The moment of truth had arrived. The conference room at TaylorTech was packed. The hum of whispered conversations filled the air, uneasy, expectant. Derek sat near the back, eyes fixed on the front where Preston Blake, the CEO, stood behind the podium. The weight of years of loyalty and struggle pressed down on him like a physical force. Preston cleared his throat, commanding silence. "Today we announce a change in leadership within our IT division." A murmur ran through the crowd. Derek's heart pounded. "After careful consideration," Preston continued, "Derek Harper will be stepping down as Chief Technology Officer. Effective immediately, Nathan Blake will take over his responsibilities." Shock rippled across the room. Some employees exchanged stunned glances, others whispered anxiously. Vanessa sat close to Derek, her face pale but eyes sharp. She leaned in, whispering, "Something's not right. This move feels rushed, forced." Derek's mind raced. He had suspected the decision was more than a simple reshuffle. The signs were all there: secrecy, suddenness, the betrayal seeping through the cracks. He watched Nathan approach the podium, confidence radiating off him like a shield. The young man's smirk was a slap in the face to everyone who had poured years of sweat into this company. But Derek wasn't done yet. The final phase of his plan was about to kick off. And this public announcement was just the beginning. As Preston wrapped up, the crowd's energy shifted, charged, restless, uncertain. Derek caught Vanessa's eye once more. They both knew this was the turning point. The battle for TaylorTech's future was no longer behind closed doors. It was out in the open, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The room slowly emptied, but the weight of Preston's announcement lingered like a thick fog. Derek remained seated, watching as co-workers exchanged uneasy glances. The trust that once bound the team was cracking, and he could feel it deep in his bones. Vanessa approached him quietly. Her eyes scanned the room, wary and alert. "They're already talking," she whispered. "Nathan's trying to isolate you, turn the team against you." Derek nodded. He'd seen the signs before, key meetings where he was deliberately excluded, files mysteriously inaccessible, whispers behind his back. But now it was more overt. The war was no longer behind closed doors. His mind raced, planning every move with precision. The company's future and his legacy hung in the balance. "We can't let them steamroll us," Derek said quietly. "Luis and I have something they don't expect." Vanessa's eyes sparkled with determination. "Then it's time to fight back." Days passed, and tension in TaylorTech's headquarters was palpable. Derek and Vanessa kept a low profile, exchanging coded messages and subtle nods of solidarity. Meanwhile, Nathan's reign began with a harsh purge. Those loyal to Derek were quietly sidelined, their influence erased. But Derek wasn't done yet. He knew that the company's fate hinged not only on power plays but on uncovering truths hidden in plain sight. One evening, in the dim glow of his home office, Derek reviewed the files Luis had given him, lines of code, system logs, encrypted keys, all evidence of his creation and control. He crafted a plan, expose the cover-up, reclaim his legacy, and ensure the truth could not be buried. The next day, during a critical board meeting, Derek requested to speak. All eyes turned. The room was thick with anticipation. With calm confidence, he laid out his findings. Unauthorized access from the top floors, the company's covert sale negotiations, and, most importantly, his legal claim to system sync. Whispers erupted, some faces paled. Preston's mask slipped for a moment. The battle was far from over, but Derek had turned the tide. The room fell silent after Derek's bold revelation. Preston's usual composure cracked, his eyes darting nervously. The board members exchanged uneasy glances. Loyalty fractured, uncertainty thick in the air. Preston quickly tried to regain control, dismissing Derek's claims as outdated grievances. But the evidence was undeniable. Voices rose. Some supported Derek, demanding a full investigation. Others clung to the status quo, fearing the chaos exposure might bring. Nathan, lurking in the background, smirked, confident his new power was still intact. But Derek saw through the facade. The battle for TaylorTech's soul was no longer behind closed doors. It was raw, public, and escalating fast. With Vanessa quietly coordinating from the sidelines, Derek prepared for the next move, a legal challenge that could change everything. Every war ends, but not every ending is what it seems. Weeks later, the dust began to settle. Derek's legal team had presented undeniable evidence. Emails, source codes, and official acknowledgements proving system sync was his creation, his intellectual property. Faced with overwhelming proof, TaylorTech's board had no choice but to negotiate. Preston was forced to resign. Nathan's rise halted abruptly, and Derek received a generous settlement, and most importantly, full recognition. But the real victory went beyond money or titles. Derek used this hard-won leverage to rebuild the company culture, emphasizing respect and collaboration over politics and backstabbing. Vanessa, now promoted, stood loyally by his side. Luis continued as the trusted ally. Together they ushered in a new era at TaylorTech, one founded on integrity, innovation, and hard work. Derek's fight was over, but his mission to protect what he built was just beginning.